Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Contact Lost. This is Joker, and today with me I've got Vladdi.
Oh,
Hi Vladdi, and Danny as well.
Hello. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's been a while. Today we're going to talk about the Chaos Space Marine Codex. That's obviously been out for a while, and Vladdy had already a chance to give his take on it on the Normal Blokes podcast, was it?
yeah.
Yep. So if you want to hear more, you can check out what was there. But I'm not sure if this is going to be more in depth, but it's going to follow the usual pattern that we do. So we will go over like all the relics, warlord traits, detachment abilities, what have you. But we're not going to do a deep dive or just read it all out. We're just going to see what's the best that the book has to offer in each of those regards. So without any further ado, let's start with detachment abilities, as that's the part that the book offers us first. So guys, what can you tell me about these?
Go on, Vladdy, you jump in.
Okay. Well, I think the first thing we should talk about is, let's say, first impressions, because there's need to be some introduction into this codex,
Yeah,
especially
I did skip that.
I think that my impressions are a bit different, at least. Let's say less optimistic than Dennis. Dennis is a widely known optimist, and I'm a grumpy one. So the first impressions for me were very bad. I must admit that from that time, from those first impressions, things changed a bit. Not only I found some nice combos, not maybe exactly suited to my way of my play style, but some strong combos in the codex. But moreover, new balancing patch came in, new points from some armies. Some armies were cut in size a bit, and therefore the codex itself became better. But we need to straighten out one simple thing. This codex is a I don't know. Can I use rude words in your podcast?
Yeah, I mean,
Do you
we
want?
always
Do
have.
you, I don't know how much family friendly you want to be. I asked Camilleri the same thing, and he said he wants to be family friendly as much as I can get. So
The children are waiting to listen to this the minute they finish school.
Yeah, I was very civil on his podcast. Basically, I think there's some things in this codex is a huge piss on all Chaos Space Marine players. There are some very obvious things like no jump pack for Lord, which is on itself it's a terrible shit on all Chaos Space Marines. I have like 7 of them, 7 Chaos Space Marine House Lords and jump pack. And because I always thought there's no point in making them, magnetize them, I can also just always make just another one. So I did, and I have 7 of them, and they all now pointless. I can play them in Legends probably, and that's it. So fuck you, Games Workshop, for that. And that's even not exactly. That cannot be explained even by the policy, because they have house-based marine models with jump packs. They even, I think, published, and I'm not sure if he's on still on sale, but there was a house-based marine Lord on jump pack with gloves. And there's this Black Legion characters with jump pack. So I don't know. This is a shitty thing to do, and it's not the only shitty things like that to do in this codex. The Chosens were completely ripped off options. Most of the units codex was completely ripped off options. All demon kin units were the ripped off ability to take marks, so they cannot be demon units in the codex cannot be sworn to any god. Come on, this is extremely stupid. This is flat. This is not This is not. I don't know. I can't find words to express myself about it. This is shitty, very shitty, in my opinion. That makes a lot of units in the codex very flat. I'm not saying they're not good and there's no use for them, like Possessed. They are very good. Possessed are very good unit, but they lack like 80 to 90% of interactions in the codex. So in most cases, you can give them Black Rune. You can, I know, maybe give them some specific things if they work with them, but they will lack like 80 to 90% of other interactions you normally could give them. So this makes the unit every unit bases its rules only on its datasheet, at least all the Demon King units. So that's very flat. I don't like it. I feel that's like making rules for stupid people. But obviously the main reason for that is that Games Workshop policy, to be able to, that you can only field things that are in the box and nothing else. But it doesn't justify not giving the ability to give Demon King units marks, because that would not, it cannot be explained by it. So I don't like it. There's a lot of things that I don't like, but I will give a voice to Danny. Maybe he will, sugar this thing a bit.
I think it's important to note there's a subtle difference. You've been playing this army for a very long time, and I've just picked it up. So
you don't have 7 Chaos Lords with jump packs.
I actually have 0 Chaos Lords with jump packs, which helps. It helps when you don't have any in the codex, so that's all right for me. I think the difference, I think there's going to be a split between players that have played this codex for a long time and players that are brand new to the codex, because we don't have the negative feel about things that aren't missing. But from my perspective, from an initial sort of how does the codex feel, I think he's really good. I think he's better than people give it credit for. I think he's got a lot more stronger, a lot more wider options in terms of building lists that I think people have given it credit for. And I'm really enjoying it so far.
Good, right. So one pessimist, one optimist, perfectly balanced as all things should be. So having said those things, how about we try those detachment abilities now? Although I think there's not much to say, so I'll just go through it quickly. So basically, Chaos Space Marine detachments gain, your troops gain OPSEC as usual. Your Traitors Astartes gain the Legion traits. And then there's the usual restrictions of 1 Demon Prince, but also 1 Dark Commune, 1 Chaos Lord per detachment. And you can't include more cultists than core infantry is Traitors Astartes core infantry, obviously. And there's a new way of adding cult marines to your detachments, because now you actually pick the datasheet up from the respective codex of the god dedicated legions, let's call them, except for Noise Marines, as they're in this book, and they get Let the Galaxy Burn and some other stuff, but let's not read all of it. And they just never gain a Legion trait, which I think is a change from the previous book, where you could take, for example, Khorned Berserkers in Alpha Legion and benefit from all that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's it.
Well, with the exception, obviously, of Noise Marines, which can be taken as core and gain all the abilities when they are in the Emperor Children detachment.
Yeah. Of course, because Emperor's Children are in this book; they don't have a separate one. Neither do World Eaters yet, so this is already like this book is prepared for the release of that codex whenever that happens. Right, so up next we've got the legions, starting with Black Legion. I think Danny, you've been playing quite a bit with them, at least initially, so maybe you can take this one.
Yeah, sure. So for me, Black Legion is probably one of the stronger builds in the entire book. The way I see it is a lot of things, or the ones that sound a little bit more fun, like Red Corsairs, or I forgot its name already. That's how bad. Creations of Bile. The problem that they have is they lack utility. So Red Corsairs, you can advance and charge. Creations of Bile, you can fight on death. But they only have 3 stratagems each. They have 3 warlord traits and 3 relics. However, the rest of the legions all have fully fleshed out 4 pages worth of content. So for me, Black Legion is fantastic because its trait is really good. Its warlord traits are really good. Its relics are phenomenal, as we'll go into this in more detail. And its stratagems are probably some of the best in the entire book. So I took them to our most recent team tournament, and I went 5-0 with them. And what they allow you to do is this book is it allows you to build basically obsec on anything that's core. It allows you to build really tanky terminators, but terminators that have utility. So the stratagems, things like Confluence of Traitors, which allows you to give one unit once per game any of the other Legion traits, which that can be perhaps you want Abaddon to run forward and advance and charge, or maybe you would like your Terminators to be able to fall back and do an action towards the end of the game, or perhaps you want your 10 Terminators to fight on death when they just charge into whatever they're going to charge into. I think what this actually does is it gives quite a lot of utility to the player, and I think that's really strong. So some standouts for me about Black Legion would be things like Trusted War Leader. It gives you solid CP regen. If you put that on something like a Dark Apostle, which I think is really good in Nephilim when they just gutted all our CP. But then if you combine that on your Dark Apostle with the Cloak of Conquest, that allows you to give all your Legion core and characters within 6 inches obsec. So one of the problems for, I think, Marine armies at the minute, especially when you come against the new armies like the buffed Necrons, etc., is being able to play the primary game. What this does, of course, is give you really stalwart and hard to remove units in the Terminators, which we'll come into more later. Primary game by giving them obsec plus things like Abaddon obsec, all your characters, etc. If you then mix that alongside the which one is it? They've got a stratagem. I cannot remember what's the name of it. I probably should have researched this before. Oh yeah, Heralds of Doom. What you can do is you can give your Black Legion Legionnaires Heralds of Doom for 2 CP, and that removes all obsec from the start of your command phase to the start of your next command phase. So with that and combining with Cloak of Conquest, you can have a really strong primary game. The only limitation so far for me is the secondary objective, which is quite bad. You've just got to do an action and survive over a turn, and then you get it. And you can't do the action if you're on the objective. So I think it's pretty lackluster. But other than that, I think it's a really good Legion, especially for people that want to sort of start going to tournaments.
Okay, it does seem like it has quite a bit of utility. I'm skimming through it now as well. Vladdy, do you agree, disagree, or any other takes?
Yeah, especially the last sentence. The Black Legion is simply the most obvious legion in the Codex. If you want to run Scout Space Marines and you're not exactly sure which way to go at the start, Black Legion, basically 10 Terminators with Rune and with Abaddon and some trading units. It's a solid base for you to start. You will have a very solid army. You will be able to play against mostly everyone because basically fully buffed Terminator unit with full reels is at the basic level. It's like with the saying, it's easy to play, difficult to master. So basically this unit's combo is quite easy to play. So so it's an obvious choice. It's a easy choice. Actually, it's quite the easy choice for all the legions. 10 Terminators with Trans-Hitman and no rerolls against it. So -1 to wound, yeah. and feel no pain. So it could be actually run in every legion, but in the Black Legion it gets all the it works in Black Legion because it gets furious to hit and to wound, and there are some strategies with those terminators very well, and some other rules that I mentioned. So basically, this is if you want to start Chaos Space Marines, especially if you want to start them competitively and want to attend tournaments, and you don't know which religion to pick, and that kind of breaks your head. Think about it, then just go Black Legion with Terminators in the button and go start with there, see how it goes, see if that fits your playstyle, and after you just played it and see how it goes, you can dive into the codex more deep and to try to figure other things, maybe some other legions, but Black Legion is definitely good to start.
I think there's also to be said about how strong Abaddon is in this legion as well. Being able to give anything rerolls hit and wound if it's core or character. There are some really obvious combinations, like you said, with the Terminators, but bringing something along like 10 Rubric Marines that are now getting Obsec from Cloak of Conquest, and then getting full wound rerolls with their Flamers from Abaddon. Things like that are just a really strong and really well-valued units in this legion, I think. And it just opens up quite creativity, I would say.
Well, it's like the saying that actually was created, I think, when Rebold Gilliman had his first set of rules. If something can reroll all hits and into all wounds, you always will find a use for it. Whatever it is, you will always find a use for it. So if you take a Abaddon and like Legion, whatever you take will have, you can be sure it will have some utility on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Up next, then we've got Word Bearers, and since Vladdy, you did play some of that at some point in 8th, if I remember correctly, you're up for this one.
It's my favorite at the point. Legion. I've so done it was playing them extensively as well at the time. Basically, their Legion trait is extremely good. I think it's the best in the codex at this time. It gives you 4 reels in close combat and 5+ Feel No Pain from mortal wounds. I do find it actually best because it gives you a lifeline if you roll bad. And with those the number of attacks most of the Chaos Space Marine units can bring to the table, this rerolls mean a lot. And that 5+ Feel No Pain is also extremely important because there are a lot of mortal wounds now in the game, and they have a very solid, a very nice set of stratagems to some for to make them your units more stronger and your decisions on the table more stable. Like you can always make one power go on whatever you roll. If you fail them, you can make it go on from the stratagem. So basically, there are some you can ignore some damage. So there are some very nice stratagems there, and there are some the old first pick for Warlord trait is still extremely good. It got changed. It doesn't give Master of Union. It doesn't give +1 attack, but it gives you at first. It works like in command phase, so you can give it to you and then send it somewhere else, which is extremely good, and it gives 1+1 strength and +1 AP to close combat weapons. So if you have, for example, it works on everything actually, from big unit of possessed with rune to small unit of possessed or small units of talons. It gives you a lot of utility, a lot of strength. You can, with Master of Possession power, you can bring a unit to strength 7, which is obviously a threshold strength to be able to destroy vehicles easy. And there's also stratagem for possessed to give them reroll to wound, so you can actually make them in close combat similar to fully buffed Black Legion unit with Abaddon buffs. So there's a lot of utility there, a lot of nice rules, powerful army trait, and a lot of trading ability, because you can be sure your units do a lot because they have rerolls to hit. And there is some survivability there, because you have Feel No Pain, so mortals will not just go through you. I like that Legion very much. I will probably concentrate my future gaming on that Legion. So that's it.
So I feel like you've missed the most important thing about Word Bearers, and that's the Baleful Icon Relic that prevents rerolls to hit, wound, or damage in melee as an aura within 6 inches. Which is probably one of the best relics in the entire book, barring a demon relic. But for me, so I was playing Black Legion. I'm now playing Word Bearers, and I'll be taking them to our Rumia tournament. I think they're just the best chance that this book has got in going for top tables, for a few reasons. One, as Vladdi said, the Legion trait, it absolutely massively counters one of the biggest drawbacks and setbacks about this book, and that is Demonkin not getting core. So being able to reroll them hit rolls with possessed is absolutely insane. They provide so much value, but not just that, it gives rerolls to hit for everything. So that's your chosen, that's your possessed, that is your Lord Discordant, which we'll get to them later. This can be quite a substantial buff. Obviously, the 5 will feel no pain as well in a meta that is filled with Nids doing mortals in it and everybody. It's really strong. What I really like about this though is 2 things. A, it's the build potential. I've got 3 different builds that I'm running at the minute with Word Bearers. One is mass demon infantry with possessed. One is a sort of more shooty mass obliterator build, which I think actually works really well in this because it's quite tanky. And then there's one where I'm just running a mass amount of accursed cultists, and there are really, really good buffs in this actual Legion that do make accursed cultists, I think, quite legitimate. So that's that. I really like how flexible it is for building lists, but more importantly, the secondary. I think it's worth mentioning that this book, unlike others, has had a really bad run with some secondaries. Most of them, for me, are very subpar. However, Exalt the Dark Gods is absolutely fantastic on the basis that you can instantly complete it in your turn if you've got an icon, a Psyker, or a Dark Apostle. So an icon, a Dark Apostle, or a Master of Possession, sorry. And you've just got to get within 6 inches of the center and you complete it. And if you do it 4 times, you get 15 points. And so basically you want to be in the middle anyway. So it works out really well into your game plan. And I think it's really good.
Okay, yeah. By the sounds of you guys, this does seem like the Legion to go to. After you get some rough experience with the book. Right, up next we've got Night Lords, and I think this is the Legion.
Should probably talk about this. He run Night Lords a lot versus me and recently, and he run Night Lords in 8th, I believe. So he probably has a better view on this than I do.
And Danny doesn't have any good. Doesn't remember that too good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, honestly, if I am to be perfectly honest, I do think that from this point we should just skip the rest. It's not like there are not some interesting builds there, but the rest of the legions, I think at this point are quite unmissable. We can just skip through them because I was actually trying to make some lists, solid lists with military drain. I was trying to make the Corsair list. I tried to make some other Night Lord list, but it's difficult. Night Lords lost a lot because for some, I don't know, goddamn reason, someone thought that the stratagems were, I think, OP because they got nerfed. All the Night Lord stratagems got nerfed heavily, especially the most important one that gave you the 3d6 charge. So basically, from the only except for Emperor Children as a legend that gave you the chance, with some reasonable chance to get into close combat, it's not there. Especially the other stratagem that gave you +2 to charge is also not there. So especially the second one was important because it also gave you +1 to hit. So it's gone. Some other stratagems are worse that there were, and I did after I first read. I never even made a list for them for now. So I'm kind of disappointed with the Legion, and I didn't put much thought into it after I read the rules. To be honest.
Okay,
So,
that's sad. Yeah, Danny, you got
I
anything
mean,
to add?
I think Night Lords is decent for mobility, but I agree with Vladdy. I don't think it's anywhere near as good depth as the other Black Legion or Word Bearers. Also, the Legion trait, Terror Tactics, just doesn't sit well with me. It's really hard for you to get a meta. I've had arguments with people on the internet about this, but it's really hard for you to get a meta unit to Leadership 5.
Yeah.
You're putting so many eggs into one basket. You're jumping through so many hoops just for +1 to wound.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can only think of current effects that could work. I mean, that you'd get that bonus if you'd get into one.
Well, yeah, I mean,
also the Tyranny book, most of the units in Tyranny book, surprisingly, if it doesn't have, if it's not like command unit, some kind of elite unit, they usually have a leadership of 4 on 5. So orcs maybe, but basically, if you want to run it against, I don't know, for example, Tyranny Warrior or Spam, it's basically useless. So, as I said, it's best to skip it for now.
Sure.
I think the next Legion Iron Warriors. I think there is something you can talk about there. I think there is some play in Iron Warriors.
Honestly, I'm also a bit afraid that if we're gonna get into that much detail in every Legion, that will end up, talking for 3 hours or something. So I don't think that's exactly entertaining as it is. I think that actually, and especially Night Lords, are not that interesting at this point. Maybe some ideas will surface after the Codex makes its rounds around the tournaments. But at this point, I think that we can just say a few words about Iron Warriors, Creations of Bile, and maybe
Emperor's Children.
Emperor's Children, and that's it.
Okay, so I'll give a couple of words about Iron Warriors very quickly. I think this is probably the best army to jump in if you're brand new. This is mostly because it's really hard to kill on the basis that you can't reroll the wound roll. But it's just generally quite let's say new player friendly. There's not a lot of thinking that needs to do. There's not a lot of strats that think, oh, I've got to do expert positioning or anything like that. It's just generally either I increase my output or I increase my defensibility. So for me, it's a really good new player Legion. So a couple of things that you can do, for example, you can go into putting obsec onto core. So if you don't want to run as many Legionnaires and you want to run a big Terminator block, this is perfect. Give them chance hitman, give them -1 to wound, and you cannot reroll the wound roll against them. When you use Bastion, you can then give them obsec as well, which is really, is really fantastic. It's quite simple play. It's good for newer players. There are then obviously some little nuances. Like I think this is probably the better. If you want to take obliterators, they kind of lack in other legions. I think the three standouts are, of course, this one, Black Legion, and Emperor's Children. But I think this is really good, especially on those WTC tables, because you're ignoring all benefits of cover. So the things like Obliterators, Forge Fiends, which I'm really big on, are fantastic in Iron Warriors. And then of course there is some fun things like putting the techno venomous mecha tendrils onto a warpsmith and just do like 10 to 12 mortal wounds when he fights for no reason, because that's always fun. Other than that, the secondary is pretty crap.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe I'll take on the Red Corsairs. Basically, Red Corsairs army traits stay the same. You can advance in charge, and also your models count twice on the objective. And if they have 10 or more wounds, it's 5 men on the objective. The first rule is very good. That's no denying that. Having the ability to charge and advance in charge on all your army is not to be missed, not to be omitted. It's a very nice trait. There's also one very nice thing with this legion. Its leader can give what is his name?
Dark Raider.
Now the Lord of the Red Corsairs. What's his name?
Huron?
Huron, yeah, Huron.
Oh yeah, Huron. Just forgot his name. Huron gives you the ability to give full reels to hit on one core unit, which can be used quite nicely in the game. For basically, if you can give one unit full reels, it's always nice. It's always a good rule. And he also can cast one spell once per game. He's also quite decent, not too good, but quite decent combat. So basically, he has a nice buffer. And the problem with the Red Corsairs is that most, if not every, of the interesting things that they have works only with core units. And core units for Terminators are not that good. I think the basic strength of the Codex is with Demon King units, especially possessed, and nothing. At least most of the rules of Red Corsairs, especially except for their army trait, doesn't work on non-core units. So you have to invest in core units like bikes, which are overpriced, maybe chosen, which are very standardized and slow, and maybe some other things to be able to run all the rules properly. But there are some nice rules in Red Corsairs. You can you have a warrior trait that gives you another move after shooting, which is always good. They have a nice, very nice stratagem for bikes that allows you to run away after you make your attacks, which is obviously very good. So I can see some lists with a big unit of bikes going around twice, shooting and getting behind the cover, and whenever they charge, they can run back. And there are maybe some things in that legion, but you can't give any serious buff to your possessed and to your Demon King units, which in most cases are your basic trading units, because there are simply have the most number of attacks. There are the fastest units. They have decent AP, and the Red Corsairs have a limited things that you can give to them. So that's it. So there are some things you can create, interesting things you can create with Red Corsairs, but they're not the first pick.
Okay. Any other legions you guys want to mention? Danny, have you got one more?
I think Vladdy should quickly talk about Emperor's Children, but I'll just quickly talk about Creations of Bile. I realize that a lot of people on the internet are very up on this, mostly because there's Fight on Death. And it's also the Twisted Helix of CSM with the +1 move and +1 strength. My biggest problem with this is I think the Fight on Death is not that powerful that people are making it out to be. So the biggest problem that CSM have right now is not dying in melee, because they can tendally just go in and kill something. The problem is being shot to death, which this trait has no effect on whatsoever. It's also quite easy to sort of play around with correct piling by your opponents and positioning, so that you can't fight. You can't fight on death and pile in the right way. So they can also limit how far this trait does go when you do die. So I'm not a big fan of that. There is one obviously buff in here, is that you can advance and charge with a unit, and it can be any. Oh, it's just a core unit. So again, it's just a core unit. So again, that's the same limitation. Terminators, Raptors, what they call Chosen. Whereas of course with something like this as well, Strength 6 Possessed would be absolute, and Movement 10 is really good, but no charge really limits it. Also, the secondary, if you go first, you're really limited on how much you're going to score, especially if your opponent is smart, plays a more defensive game, and limits how much they die as well. It's not that good, I don't think. I think it gets more, what's the word? It's more popular than it should be.
Well, I agree, and I actually gave Creations by quite a while of thought. I created some lists, especially in combination with Renegade Knights, and I have the same, also very similar ideas about it that Danny has. Which one thing that I find that is most important is that this Fight of Death works very well on glass hammer units. If you are attacked by a glass hammer unit, like some Elder stuff maybe, and some Chancellor cult stuff, then they works very well, because it's a very interesting trait when you actually die, but take the charging unit with you. But against many other things like knights, like other Chaos Space Marines, like other Space Marines, suddenly when you fight on death, but you have no rerolls of any kind, so the damage that you're gonna inflict is very limited. And if basically that's your basic army trait, because you have no other tricks in your sleeve, so your opponent will pick you at the pick fights with you, and pick those units the way he wants, and will limit that ability. Especially good players will limit that ability very much, and I don't think it's a very good rule if you're playing some Glasshammer army like Gentle Cults or maybe offensive Elders, but against all other armies, it's not that good.
I also think it's worth mentioning that you can't use stratagems with this ability either, which again, if you need to pop +1 to wound or reroll your wound rolls, or it's just something to really trade up once you're dead, you can't, because you're not activating the unit, you're activating on a per model basis. So that's just another limitation inside it for me.
So basically, limited uses. It has a limited use. That's the problem.
So you can just quickly give something about Emperor's Children, then we'll move on.
I think that Emperor's Children is a very solid legion, basically because it has some interactions that none other legion have, because all the units have Slaanesh keyword. So some interactions in the book that normally, for example, it doesn't work on Possessed, it will work with Possessed, I think, especially Feel No Pain will work on Possessed. In Emperor Children, and they have access to a very solid troop choice in form of Noise Marines. Even a simple 5-man squad with Blastmaster is a very solid addition to the army, because they have core, they have OPSEC, and on 24 inches range they have the damage 4 on Blastmaster. So basically they have an access to rerolls, obviously, because they core. So I think there is some solid. Obviously, most of the army, not all, but most of the army, everything that has access to Mark of Slaanesh has also Strike First ability. So I think there is some there is something to work on with that Legion. I actually made a list. I wasn't able to play it because of time limitations. I'm a busy man. But I have some ideas about the Emperor Children, and I think they can work very well. Especially that most of the most interesting stratagems that they have actually stayed. Especially the honor of the Primarch is still there. He will all still have this ability to make a better charge. I think it still even works in Demon King. So it's still there. So you can both charge from. It works a bit worse on the because I think you have to switch now before the roll. So it's a bit worse than it was before, but it's still solid. So basically, I think there is something to think about, to work on with Temple Children. It's not as bad as with Night Lords. I'm not sure if they're as good as Black Legion or Murderous, but there is definitely something to look there to work on with her.
Yeah, I think he's really good. My biggest issue with this is I think it's more of a playstyle choice. I much prefer what Wood Bearers offers me as an army and a playstyle. However, one of the biggest benefits, but also a problem, is how good the stratagems are. What I like about Chaos Space Marines is that all the stratagems are usually not spammable. They're more situational. So you've got a toolkit rather than something that you have to constantly spam 1 CP for. Whereas for me, Emperor's Children is constantly you have to spam the 1 CP. You know, you want to get the Honor of the Prince up. You want to get the -1 AP. That's really good. Things like that. Fight Last is also, you know, really solid as well. I think this becomes, for newer players, they might feel like they need to spend the CP, and it might be a bit more harder to manage. But yeah, I think the use of
obviously a solid. There are some nice combinations there. Dan mentioned the Fast Strike Last. If you have 2 CPs on hand and you have Demon Prince that you can protect against shooting, he's going to be a beast, because there are a nice combination of World Trade and Relic that you can give him, and with 2 CPs on hand, he will always strike first in close combat, no matter what charge him, and that is very strong, because that means he will probably kill most of the things that, or at least terribly damage most of the things he's going to be charged with, and he's a solid choice. So there are some very nice things there to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the legions from us covered. It did take quite a while, actually. So
it's really they are really in depth, though, these legions. It's like one of the most biggest. It is like Space Marines 2.0 in terms of how much depth each one has, to be fair.
yeah, it is, right? I mean, I don't think any other faction, well, maybe except for Space Marines, because they've got all the supplements, have got so much for each like sub-faction. So yeah, that's that. Right, up next we've got the generic stratagems. So let's not go over all of them, but maybe there are some new interesting ones, or some really nerfed ones, or anything that caught your eye. Who's going to go first with this one? Danny, I guess it's your turn.
Okay, so obviously I have the disadvantage of not playing the previous codex, so I don't really know. But I can tell you a few stratagems that have really helped me win games. So I think one of the biggest ones to mention is Murderous Perfection. And what that is it's a stratagem that you use in your shooting phase or fight phase. You select a Astartes Slanesh unit, and they can change a dice roll of a hit, a wound, or a damage roll to be a 6. And it's only 1 CP. So what does that mean? If you've got, let's say, a Havoc squad with las cannons, or you've got a Land Raider in Emperor's Children, and you want to change a damage roll of 1 to a 6, you can do it straight away. My favorite way to do this is when I play Abaddon. If I'm, I'll charge something, he'll reroll his hit rolls. He'll reroll all his wound rolls to fish for 6s to get them juicy mortal wounds up. And then if I've got a 1 or a 2 or whatever, I will then pay the 1 CP to change that to a 6. And not only is it an extra wound damage roll, wound roll, but it's an extra D3 mortal wounds, which when you start pumping them out, it adds to him and he can do an insane amount of damage. There's been many times I've had him one bang the Silent King with Manias up as well. So I really like that for the utility that it provides. The other one that really works for me is the Corn stratagem that allows you to deny a psychic power on a 4+. I'm trying to find what it's called, but I can't seem to find it
Scorn
anywhere.
of Sorcery.
Corner of Sorcery. Scorn of Sorcery, yes. And that may not sound like it's really strong for some people, but if you come against armies that are like, take Tyranids, for example, if they've got a Psyker that's just sat all the way at the back, and he's pushing his Flyrant forward. This has actually happened before. They push their Flyrant forward, they advance him so they can get closer. If you can throw, say, a Raptor squad, this is what I like to do. I like to throw a Raptor squad with Corn behind a ruin somewhere. And then when they need to get off that vital spell, even if they got it off with an 11 and it cannot be denied, I roll a 4 up. And if I get it off, he cannot charge. And that's happened for me in a game twice now. And it can really turn the tide. So I really like that.
Well,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, I agree. These are some of the standouts. Let's be honest. The stratagems, I have this knowledge, generally get a bit nerfed. Not all of them. The 9 part actually got better, but because it was, I think, previously stick only to World Eaters, and now it's just Corn units, so you can use it on any Corn units. But for example, Veterans obviously got nerfed, and the stratagem that Danny was saying, it's not that the perfection, the Slanish one. It's I think, as far as I remember when I read it, it's not that juicy, because you have to decide that you're going to use that stratagem before any rolls. So you have to, before any rolls, decide that you're gonna use the stratagem. So basically that damage 6, it may not be useful because your opponent's gonna pass all invulnerable saves. So you'll use that stratagem before any rolls. So you have to, before any rolls, decide that you're gonna use the stratagem. So basically that damage 6, it may not be useful because your opponent's gonna pass all invulnerable saves. So you will just get 1 real for wound, for if you even use it at that point. You may want to keep it for damage, and then your opponent passes all the invulnerable saves, and the stratagem
goes to waste. Yeah.
You lock. So it's not that juicy, and it's not that interesting. It's definitely better when you have a additional mortal wounds on 6s, and you use it that way. You always get those mortal wounds, and now no one's gonna take that away from you. So it's useful that way. But for Land Riders, a bit tricky.
You say that, but you really underestimate my ability to roll a 1 for damage.
Well, the trick is you always spend that CP, and you don't know if you even get to that damage part.
That is true. There is one more I want to mention, and this is a particular favorite of mine. It's not one that you use all the time, but when you can use it, it can be really big. So excessive cruelty, which is 2 CP, it allows a Slanesh unit, when your opponent falls back, they can consolidate up to 3 inches. So for something like a Terminator unit, if your opponent is falling back and they're on a forest and you're touching base, you can consolidate back into engagement range. Or if you've got Abaddon and someone wants to fall back, he can then move forward 3 inches, and then he can intervene in the piling phase and things like that. So that for me is a really strong relic. But also you can either consolidate 3 inches, or you can shoot. So if you've got, say, you've got a block of Terminators in with Abaddon, full rerolls, they're going to be Slanesh for the 5-up Delightful Agonies. They can then all of them shoot, which I think can be really strong.
Oh, it's interesting. Stratagems now a bit situational, especially for TCPs. And as I said before, those stratagems generally got nerfed. So basically, there are a lot of them that cause TCPs. And most of them are mostly situational. So they're going to be a situation where you're going to need them. And they're going to be extremely useful. Those situations I mentioned, for example, for that. But most of them are having a bit on the orc level stratagems, so they cost a lot and doesn't give you that much. I think this is when this book is actually lacking a bit. Though there is, for example, transhuman or Nurgle units, so there are some things that you can use, but I don't think that from the generic stratagems in Chaos Space Marine, I don't think that much stands out. There are some interesting stratagems in Legion stratagems. Those do stand out, but in generic, those generic ones are more. Some people use them, mostly not, and even if you do, you'll think twice about it. That's what I think.
I agree. I think most of the better stratagems are in the Legion base, but opposite of what you think, I like that they're situational. I like that I have a stratagem for while not all of them are massive impact. I like that there's stratagems for every scenario, and I don't have to keep spamming the same stratagem every turn. The problem I have with Gene Stealer Cult is I have to keep using the same stratagems every turn, and it leaves you less opportunity for utility. Whereas for me, all the stratagems are utility based mostly, and I really like that. I like having a toolbox, and I may only use one specific stratagem.
Definitely.
Yeah, once again.
Definitely better from the competitive point of view if you're looking for the interesting and complicated game, then that is very good. Yes, I agree. But from the simple strength of the book point of view, well, it's not that good, obviously, because if you have a very good stratagem, you want to spam it. It's obvious, right? So that only means that Chaos Marine, they will not have that kind of stratagems that are that good that you want to spam them every time. It's well, agreeably, it's a question of preference. Some people, like Danny, would prefer the stratagems to be tricky and useful from time to time, and give you a solid advantage, but only in specific situation if we remember to use them correctly. But obviously, most of the players, let's be honest, prefer a straightforward stratagems that give you the advantage every turn, and Chaos Space Marine lacks those, I think.
Yeah, they do. I agree.
All right, so there you have the stratagems, 2 different takes, and up next are the marks of chaos. I mean, I don't think we're gonna spend too much time on that, but basically, you can upgrade. Was it
so it's
mark
15
of core units? Or...
Yeah, so it's core and character.
Okay.
So it's core and character. Apart from the accursed cultist character, they can't take them for some reason, obviously because they don't like cultists. But it's 15 points. You pay 15 points. If you are Emperor's Children, you have to pay 15 points for every unit that can get a mark. So they have to all be Slanesh, which can start becoming costly. On the flip side, if you're any unit in Emperor's Children will have the Slanesh keyword, so that's really good. And each mark then gives a buff. Slanesh is fight first, and the icon will then give them +1 attack, +1 to hit to their attacks. Mark of Nurgle is one that people keep arguing over that is difficult, but is basically -1 to wound if you are equal the toughness and strength, or if the strength is more than twice the toughness. Twice the toughness or more is very simple. And if you have the icon, 6 is auto wound if you are shooting. Mark of Corn is very simple. You get +1 strength, and if you've got an icon, you get +1 AP in melee. And if you're Zinch, you ignore the first failed save. And if you shoot, you get +1 AP on the shooting. So I think it's quite a simple and quite a nice way to add some flavor. The problem, as Vladdy said at the start, is that you cannot put it on demons. I can understand why. I think it'd be really broken some interactions. As we go further into the book, I think people can start picking that up, but it makes no sense logically.
Yeah, and core units, those buffs are quite expensive, especially if you want to use them in trading units. That makes they actually increase the cost of those trades very much. So if you want to have Raptors with Mark of Corn and -1 AP, you can't give them -1 AP. They can't have icon. But if you want them +1 strength, then suddenly they lose much of the trading ability because they cost too much. And you can still use them for some things like Danny said, from blocking powers, and they still have some more hitting ability, but they do not trade well. If you face them against, I don't know, 85 point of Seraphins or something like that, they suddenly don't look that well in that trade. So there's a lot of to wait here. You have to think if that upgrade is really necessary for the unit, because they do not come cheap.
Yeah, I think you've got to really hand cherry pick what units will want marks, and yeah, because if you like you say, if you start having 10 units with 10 marks, characters, etc., then yeah, it's 150 points. That's an extra unit of possessed, for example. What I really like about marks is what moves on to the next one is the demon relics that they unlock. And I think that is a really nice and flavorful way, but also really powerful buff that they provide to your army.
So basically you can smooth your way into relics and just agree that all demon weapons are good.
And so is the Black Rune of Damnation. Let's go. Next.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, we can talk about demon relics because I've got 2 favorites. So I run 2 now in every list that I do. The first one is Euloka the Black, and that goes on my Lord Discordant. Combine that with the Warlord trait Flames of Spite, my Lord Discordant just becomes a full-on mortal wound machine. And I really like that. It just makes him one of the most aggressive and damage output units in the entire game. The other one that I really like is I made a pseudo demon prince. So basically, it's like a pseudo hive tyrant demon prince. So Koak the Boundless on the Mark of Zinch on a demon prince. Basically, they ignore invulnerable saves with one of the weapons, and that's of course going to be the strength 8 -3 damage 3 sword. If you can mix that with one of the relics, warlord traits in Master of Woodbearers, you get then AP4, and he'll just start chomping through invulnerable saves and killing whatever he wants to kill. So that for me is my favorite 2 combinations. I'm not sure if Vladdy has one he likes.
Yeah, I do. Actually, I like those 2 as well. I do find that Zinch 1 doesn't give you any additional buffs. So basically, it's just no invulnerable saves. I find it a bit lacking, though. I do agree that if you can play to the strength of the unit, basically, meaning if you can charge with it, so basically you can fight before your opponent does, that no invulnerable saves is very good. But I, for example, find a lot of utility in the Nurgle one, that gives you automatic runes, but also have another ability to ignore full pains and all wound limitations. And that kind of Demon Prince with proper wall trait, especially real hits and +1 attack, can take out Abaddon in 1 turn, just like that. He's dead. So that ability to ignore wound limitations gives you a bit of utility to kill the characters you otherwise wouldn't be able to, like Gaskell, like Tense, like Phoenix Lords, like Abaddon, and
Phoenix Lords.
Also the ability to ignore Pains. It's like actually 3 rules in 1. The automatic wounds, ignore Pains, ignore wound limitations. So there's a lot of utility, a lot of you can use it properly against a lot of things. Because let's get back to that Zinchen one. That's great, but if you that has Armor of Contempt and 2+ save, you suddenly you are faced with 4+ save anyway, because you have damage -2 and here 2+ save, so you get to force nothing out of that relic. So it will work very good against Hive Tyrants with 3+ save and 4+ influence saves, or against Harlequins. But against some other in some other games, when you play a single tournament, it will become either useless utterly, or its uses are going to be very limited. While simply the Nurgle one, when you have automatic will, it's going to be useful every time. Even if something doesn't have a wound limitation, or it doesn't have no pain, automatic wounds is going to be useful always. So that's when I find that Zinchen back in the singles too, because there are going to be games when it will give you nothing or very little. The other one I like is Slash one. Okay, just make a counterpoint.
I think a lot of this is more meta dependent as well. The Nurgle and the Zintuan are sort of opposite each other. So the Zintuan, like you say, really good in Flyrants, really good against the Silent King, really good against anything that's got invulnerable save. But then the Nurgle one is really good against anything that actually might shut you down as Chaos Space Marines. So Catan's really shut down Chaos Space Marines with their Mortals. Gazkul being able to having to do four wounds per phase against Gazkul, or trying to get rid of Abaddon can be really difficult. So I think it's both flavor and a meta choice of what you pick, but I think all of them have a place in the game.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the Immortal one is also very good, especially on something that has a lot of attacks. And the last one I want to talk about is Slash one. It's also very good. Actually, I equipped my Demon Prince in Emperor Children with that nice tool, combined with the relic that gives you real 2 wounds. It gives you a huge number of attacks with rerolls. And if you remember that they have also Strike Last Stratagem, that the Demon Prince becomes a very strong thing to move. He will kill most things that charge him with those with this Demon Relic, which actually is 2 Demon Relics, because it gives you deep plus additional attacks on 2 different weapons. So I think this is also a very interesting, and it's gonna be used. That demon weapon or Slash one is gonna be used as well. And honestly, I think that Khorne one is also useful. The Khorne one has one solid limitation. It works, I think, only on Lord Discordant, because you really want that power, psychic power, on your Demon Prince. And being Khorne actually takes that away. So he has probably that relic has a bit, the use of that is a bit limited because of that. But I also think that we can be seeing those coordinate Lord of Discordance running with that relic.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a play where you can have 3 Lord Discordants in a detachment, all of them with a different relic.
Yeah, so all the demon weapons are basically good, and yeah, we have rune, and well, that's basically it. Well, no, I'm joking because actually, in the point of relics and the warlord traits, Chaos Marines Marine excel. Warlord traits are very nice. You can find one that you need in a given build. You can have real wounds. You can have real hits plus 1 attack. There are some other things. So basically, traits are good. And relics are very good. There's a very good relic for magicians that extend the range of powers and allows you to can remember. I think that's another power. Yeah, I think another power. I can't remember, but this extension of range when you have Death Hex on 18 inches or Warplane of 12 inches is a very solid relic. So if you're running a sorcerer and you want to have that no invulnerable safe power, is a strong choice. And there are some other things there that you can look into, though let's be honest, with current rules, that I find stupid, obviously, that Nephilim brought us, there's solid limitations of how many things you can take, because you run out of CPs, which sucks because there could be more interesting interactions in the book that we'll never find and never look into, because those obvious ones. So the relic trait combination on your close combat machine, black rune, and maybe something else just takes away all of your options of relics and traits. There's no point of looking deeper because you have no CPs to spend.
Yeah, to be honest, I just start most games with 1 or 0.
Yeah, anyway, yeah.
I think most of us do. Right. Up next are the psychic powers. So maybe I'll just quickly talk about the Dark Hereticus discipline, because it's, I want to say, mainly unchanged. The big change actually is that now your Psychus you got specific powers in addition, rather than they need to choose it as one of the powers they know. But they're mostly I mean, the names have changed for the Tzeentch and Nurgle one, but the effect is pretty much the same. Well, Tzeentch is now 4+ invuln rather than +1. And then all the other powers, you've still got the same powers. Warp time got nerfed, so you can't charge after moving again. And obviously it works only on infantry and chaos spawns now. I think the others are largely unchanged. Well, Infernal Gaze, you can now roll 6 dice if you've got an unmodified 10+ on the psychic test, but that's it.
Yeah.
What about the Malefic Discipline? I'm not that familiar with that one, so maybe you guys can say if there's anything.
You missed the most important part of the book then. Well, those Malefic powers got terribly buffed. There are a must-have. I think there must be one master of possession in every list, every fucking single list. If you don't run a single master of possession, you're doing something wrong. Get back to point A and change your ways. You need to have one master of possession because first there's a power to bring one model back from in 3 units, so not to be core. So it actually had to be core or demonkin, I think. So, but well, that's most of your army. So yeah, easy. So you want to bring up one obliterator back, no problem, and that power as well, just by accident, also heals one model in the unit. So yeah, 10 Terminators are laughing a lot about when you hear about this power. So basically, a very strong power, a must-have, I think. From that point, you can choose the rest, but basically,
I think the dumbest thing about that is it's warp charge 5.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, yeah. So it's like, yeah, just have it for free. Don't mention it, right? So just bring back one model.
I think for me, all these powers are used. All of the powers are useful.
Yeah.
I'm
constantly fighting the urge to put 2 Master of Possessions in the list.
Yes.
I need both of them. Come on.
Yeah, when I first did my word bearers list, I had 2 Master of Possessions because in a word bearers, all of these buffs are incredible. For me, the standout ones are if you run 10 Terminators, Pact of Flesh, and Mutated Invigoration. Giving your Terminators toughness 5 with the Dark Rune is just a ridiculous combination. Unless it's then strength 10 or above, nothing is wounding you on anything better than a 4. Then obviously Pact of Flesh, obviously resurrecting one. If you are running, say, Word Bearers and you're running Mass Possessed, then I would skip the Mutated Invigoration. I would go Cursed Earth and probably Warp Marked. I wouldn't go Pact of Flesh. I don't think resurrecting one Possessed is really going to change much. It's not like Terminators who can become Obsec and much harder to shift. But Mutated Invigoration, no, Cursed Earth for the 4+ invulnerable save and the mortal wounds, and then Warp Marked for giving them +1 to wounds when they attack it. That also works on Obliterators if they shoot, Forge Fiends if they shoot, etc. I think that's a really solid combination.
As you said, all of them are nice. So because
all of them are solid.
Because there's another one to give you automatic wounds on 6s to hit.
Infernal power.
Which is obviously a good thing, and especially if since your Demon units mostly have strength 5 or 6, sometimes 7, then but they at the same time have a lot of attacks. And with Word Bearers, they have a real to hit, so there's gonna be a number of 6s, and those 6s auto-wound. So basically, I'm running 2 Master of Possession in my Word Bearers list because I need all 4 powers. Actually, I need 5. But I have to make some hard choices. So they're good.
There's definitely a nice meme in Possession about being able to just one-shot a aspect, whatever they're called, from Eldar. If you could just one-shot Baharoth with Possession, that'd be really fun.
Yeah. So that's obviously another strong power, but it's actually kind of situational, and because you have like 5 other powers that you want to have.
Yeah.
And then you usually can have 2 or 4, so that 6 power is kind of getting lost. But it's still a nice power. So all the Malefic powers got buffed a lot. And as I said at the start, if you're not running 1 Master Possession in your list, then you're doing something wrong.
Okay, and up next are the prayers. So I haven't managed to read how this works, whether you get the specific one for free as well in addition.
It's quite easy. You have Transhitman. That's it.
End of story. Yep. Okay, works for me.
Well, actually, that's the fucking strange problem of the Games Workshop. They gave the priest 5 reasonable powers, 5 reasonable hymns or whatever they called, and one that is obviously stupidly good. And why? If they gave it, if that power would work like only Transhitman or only no rerolls, it would be okay. But suddenly you have one hymn that works, that gives you both Transhitman and no rerolls, and obviously there's nothing that can compete with. There's nothing that good there. So if you're running a priest, you probably will be running that hymn with power because it's simply too good not to.
Yeah, I would agree. Of course, if you are running, say, Black Legion with Abaddon, you want to give your mark of Slanesh to your apostle. So there is going to be a moment in time in the game when a Baden's just going to want to advance and charge and finish the game off, that's always a nice little must-have for 15 points. But other than that, trans hitman for most of the game until your opponent, doesn't matter if your opponent can or cannot kill your Terminators. Yeah, advance and charge always works as well.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, bullet traits then.
Well, there are some that stand out. Two big hitters, obviously. One, if you want, you have a character that need to have a lot of attacks that need to hit. So you have +1 attack and real hits, and there's another one that gives you, I think, real 2 wounds and on 6 mortal wounds. So these are basic solid ones for all the close combat machines that you want to create. I can't remember the rest actually. Maybe Danny can jump in.
Most, like, obviously one of them is a Baden's, which lets you pick out one unit and give reroll wound rolls against that one unit for core and characters in your legion. Not very exciting. There's like a 5 of Feel No Pain for a Warlord, which is again not very exciting. Gaze of Gods, I think it's called. It gives a 4 invulnerable and gives your Warlord in all 3 of the wontons, which is something we've not even talked about yet. That's that we need to eventually talk about. But I think, yeah, like Vladdy said, the most important is Flames of Spite and Hatred Incarnate. But then if you are in Legion specifics is where it gets really interesting. I think the generic Warlord traits are more for if you want to build smashy characters.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so I'm scrolling through the book as we speak, and I didn't even notice the part about the wontons, or
I
I
thought
want to call them
you're leaving
doctrines.
that for last or something like that.
Okay, well, why don't we just mention them now? I mean, since they came up. So basically, Slaughter's the one you get in the first battle round, and that gives exploding 6s on heavy and rapid fire.
That's basically
expecting
doctrines, expecting Spaceman doctrines, but additional hits on 6s instead of
AP,
-1 AP. So basically, it's the same mechanic. I don't like it. I very much would prefer that it stayed the way it was before. But mostly
they had nothing before.
All they did have exploding 6s in combat from the first turn.
Oh yeah, you mean Death to the False Emperor?
Okay. This is the rule that substituted that, and I preferred very much the old rule, but I will have to live with the new one. Because basically I run Space Marines list based on close combat. Let's be honest, this army is all about close combat. The rest, maybe if you're running 10 Terminators, then maybe those middle turns are gonna be nasty as well for you. But basically, the army bases in close combat. The shooting is an add-on and nothing else. So basically, you get the advantage in close combat from the rule only from the third turn, which is okay, but it's not that good. I don't like it. I prefer it the way it was. Though I think, like, when you were like a player like Danny and never played Chaos Space Marine before, this additional army-wide rule can be simply a good one, can be considered a good one, and worth mentioning. For some weird reason, Games Workshop decided also that the rule will give +2 hits on the Flamers for all the units in the army. Just because I know why. Because Flamers do not roll to hit, so Flamers would be omitted in the rule. So they decided to make up for it. They gave the Flamers +2 number of attacks, I think. Yeah, and that's what I think. And then it's gonna be probably more optimistic about it.
I love this rule.
Yeah, I thought so.
Obviously, what I really like is that Space Marines is very specific. You've got a couple of weapons in one, different weapons in the second. Whereas with this one, it sort of merges it. So rapid fire in the first and second, assault in the second and third, etc. I like that it sort of there's an overlap on weapons.
Is it like that? There's no rapid in first, I think.
There is rapid in first. There's rapid in first. There is an overlap, and it's really good that way. Sure. It just adds a little bit more value then to your rapid fire weapons, a little bit more value to assault. Obviously, I don't like the fact that heavy is only the first turn, but of course, if you are bringing things like I bring Forge Fiends. I love them. I think they're one of the best units in the book. I also like obliterators in certain builds, but then if you build into them, there are manipulations, of course, in like Iron Warriors or Wood Bearers or whatever. Obviously, let the galaxy burn with the +2 to flamers. If you bring 10 rubric marines, you're looking at about an average of 55 flamer shots, which then you can reroll if you've got a Baden in Black Legion. So I really like it. I never tried the original. I imagine it was super like crack cocaine when you roll 4 pluses and getting half your hits extras, like oops. But
believe me, it fucking was.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I never lived in that world, so I enjoy the world that we live in right now.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Good for you.
Yeah. Well, I just want to mention one thing. I'm quite sure that at the moment that Danny said that Forge Fiends are one of the best units in the Codex, all Thousand Sons players looked at him weirdly. And well, let's mention it. They've got players as well, I think, right?
They don't have Forge Fiends. They have Press Crawlers.
They did have the identical data sheet in their army lists in their codexes for like a year or something. And obviously no one thought up to now that it may be a good unit. I basically agree it's a solid unit. Don't get me wrong. But I think it lacks a bit of punch if you compare it to, I don't know, Helverines, Imperial Knights, or the Renegade Knights, Helverines. You can clearly see that they lack a bit of maybe a number of attacks. But I do think it's a solid fire support.
I'll stop you guys for a sec here. Before we go into data sheets, as that's imminent, is there anything worth mentioning on the secondary objectives, the generic ones, or shall we just go to data sheets straight away?
The Legion ones, half of them are bad in my opinion. A couple are solid.
We've covered Legion. Forget about Legions. We're looking at the 3 generic ones now.
Okay, so I think the Long War is the most viable. I think if you build Abaddon and you build a Disco Lord, I used the Long War and I used Rise to Glory in every game, mostly because there was things that I could kill that would allow me to get points with it. And I think if you've got the opportunity to do it, it is quite strong. For example, against Harleys, there was 8 boats to kill. That's a lot of points potential. Versus Nids, there was quite a few monsters. Versus Dark Angel Speeder Spam, there's a lot of vehicles. So if you've got the opportunity, it's good, but it's based on what your opponent brings.
Yeah, well, basically, Rise to Glory is simply situational, and the problem with Long War is, as far as I remember, is that when you start the game, there's a limited number of points you can bring from it.
Yes.
Well, it will not bring you 15 points. No. So they're not the best ones, but it's good to have those options.
It's flexibility.
Maybe is it medical ones, maybe not exactly standing out. They're not like orc ones or necron ones when you just get points by looking at the score.
Yeah, but nothing unfortunately is that stupid.
Yeah, okay, unfortunately. Right, so now actually I'm scrolling through and then the wontons are described before the data sheets. A bit of a weird place. Never mind that. The data sheets then. So guys, I mean you've mentioned a couple of units already, but and I'm gonna make a quick list and then you can either expand on it or argue against. So Master Abaddon, obviously, Master of Possession, Demon Prince, Lord Discordant, and obviously the guy Dark Apostle, or was his name, I think?
Dark Apostle.
And then Brick of Terminators, Possessed. What else? You've mentioned Forge Fiends, so let's go with them. Anything else?
Yeah, I think a few things. Talons are quite nice unit for training. They have a decent number of attacks at real students. Maybe not. I probably will be spamming them anyway because I like them. But in general terms, they're not exactly because they're expensive. Maybe not the perfect training units with two wounds. Possessed are better at that because they have 3 wounds and damage too. But their talents are still a solid unit, and if you're lucky, they can prohibit the enemy from falling back. So that's an additional some flavor that adds some flavor to it. I think that one Venom Crawler is gonna be used from time to time because it gives you an aura, 60 inches aura of +1 to cast. So basically, if you have 2 Master of Possession and a Sorcerer, that sounds like a must-have. The unit is quite cheap, fast, and fights a bit and shoots a bit. So basically, it's a nice toolkit for 100 points. So it may be not more than one per list, but one can be used as if you need to have a better ability to cast powers. And what was I thinking? Also, I like Hell Brutes. They may be not that good compared to Carnifexes, but they're very solid because they're quite cheap. They also benefit obviously from army traits, and they have a core, so they have some rerolls from time to time. They have a solid secondary rule that gives them reroll once to wound when they're wounded. So basically, for 100, 10 points, you get a model of multi-melta, solid number of attacks. When they're if you run them in a word burst, they have 5+, no pain from mortal wounds, real full real to hits in close combat. So basically, for 110 points, they're okay. They have -1 damage, so they have some staying power. They have our content, obviously, but it's not like they're a unit that you can easily spam, or there is a reason to spam them. They're a solid unit that you can put in your list, and they're gonna make some points. They're gonna do something, but they're not really something that really stands out. I ran out of ideas.
I think spawns are funny because so every time you shoot or attack a spawn, if you do not kill it, it fully regenerates. So for 25 points, I just think that's a really funny interaction.
But obviously, they don't have core. They can't have mark.
Yeah, no. They're a nice little screen.
Not infantry, so they again lose some rules. Yeah, what they are good, what spawns are good, and why I actually put them in some lists is that this is an extremely good first trade unit. There's no other like this in the book, and I mean fucking no other, because this is a unit that combines a bit of toughness, a good toughness, number of wounds, and you can put it on objective that you need to take, but don't want to sacrifice anything important to take it. And you can do that with spawn that costs 25 points, or 2 spawns for 50 points, instead of talents or possessed for 140. And this is, I think, the basic use for that unit, as long as it doesn't have core. This is the basic use for that unit. But apart from that, well, not much.
So one thing I will mention that I really like, and it might not be a very popular choice, is new accursed cultists.
Well, I don't know. I didn't put much thought in that. They're quite slow, and they have some decent damage output for the cost, and may fit the role that I just mentioned for possessed. But apart from that, I'm all ears.
So for me, I've been playing around with a Woodbury's list with just using 5 maximum squads of Cursed Cultists and then a pile of other things as well. And for 150 points, it's 28 wounds, toughness 4. You get a 6-up Feel Pain, but there is quite a lot of cultist buffs that I think aren't as obvious that you can start stacking. So things like you get full rerolls to charge. In some cases, you can give them a 4+ invulnerable save as an aura. You can obviously give them cover and things like that. But then they're also obsec. They regenerate, so you can bring back 3 mutant models or 1 torment model, and they're toughness 4. More than that, the actual torments do 2d3 attacks each, and you can have up to 6. Get full rerolls. It's AP 2, damage 2, strength 5. So when you start stacking them up, and they start getting a Feel No Pain, they start resurrecting. The mutants themselves are, of course, immune to morale.
Basically, they look like a bit more expensive version of spawns.
But obsec, and they do get a lot of buffs that you can stack on them. In some legions, I think there are some really interesting ways of building mass horde lists with these, and I'm really enjoying playing around with them.
Cool. That's a decent perspective, yeah.
Okay. So any other units you guys want to mention, or we're good?
Okay.
I'll be running the list mostly with Talons, possessed, some troops, more possessed, and some fire support, and that's it.
Let's talk about running 3 Khorne Lord of Skulls.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw your games. Yeah, no. Thanks for the idea, but no.
I think they are so fun, and they have the Warp Locust as well, and they're Khorne. So when the new Demon Codex comes out and you start dropping Bloodthirsters from these, no, actually they're an interesting unit. I think they're a lot more play now.
The only thing I can say about them is that for the points, they have some decent weapons. The weapons are actually decent, but obviously they cost like a ton, mountains of gold. Well, it's nice that they have those nice weapons when they cost that much, and maybe, no, not really. No, not really. I'm just thinking maybe since you can have one super heavy detachment, the auxiliary super heavy detachment for free now, then you may run one from time to time because, well, that's fun. But well, then I remember that Tau have 3 hammerheads, and on singles you'll meet a lot of them, and they can, when they start the game, they can redeploy and they can shoot that guy in 1 turn, and I say no.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, Hammerhead sort of crashed the party a little bit, but it was a really fun game playing that against Tau. Having one of them survive and then killing the Hammerheads, and then watch as Tau could not reroll wound rolls, giving 1 toughness 9, 4+ invulnerable save as an aura, and just watching all these little fish people scramble around trying to kill these massive Lord of Corner Skulls is a really fun idea. Probably not the most competitive, but it can win games. But they're fun. They're fun models, and I think they're a lot more viable now.
Well,
good, but if you wanna summon Bloodthirsters next to them, you're switching to playing 4,000 points games, I think.
Yeah, you'd probably have to take one.
Yeah, probably. All right, this has been a lot. I was gonna ask for list ideas, but I think you guys have mentioned so much along the way that there's no real point having you stay any longer, as this has been quite long.
Especially
So,
that, you know, lists. Come on, lists. This is expensive stuff. Come on. Sharing my list, sharing Danny's list. No, I can share my list with Danny. He shares his list with me. But basically, with the audience like that, no, come on, this is expensive stuff. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, I'm just okay. I'm just agreeing. It's getting terribly late, and I think we covered that.
Plus, we have
much more that we wanted, I think.
Yeah, we have a big tournament coming up as well. You're leading it, of course, and I'd rather not us share our list before we go. People do tend to copy.
Well, actually, since our community moved to Discord, copying is all they do. They don't Jesus Christ. I come up with Kraken list and everything is running it now, so it's terrible. Yeah, I think Dan is right.
I will say this one thing though, having moved from Gene Stealers, it's only a temporary thing. I wanted a new army, a new challenge, just while I waited for Gene Stealers to get fixed. I really enjoy CSM. I think I think there's a lot of different play styles. I think there's a lot of different opportunities, and I'm gonna be running them in tournaments at least till the end of this year. So
basically, just admit you wanted an army that can pass a few saves along the way.
I am not gonna lie. I am enjoying power armor. Okay, do not judge me. All right. It is nice to have a 3-up armor save and armor of content versus a 5-up armor save.
Yeah, I completely agree and understand.
Yeah, it's like 3-point difference.
It is massive, but no, I think the army is a lot better than people give it credit, and I think it's got a lot more opportunities to obviously top place in tournaments, and I'm excited to see how we do in our Romia tournament at the end of September, the end of August, sorry. The end of next month.
I do agree that army is better than people originally thought, though I do think that a lot of it is due to the balancing patch and the new points that changed the point of view a bit, that changed the place that the codex is in. Though because of this completely rip of all the options, I'm still saying the codex is shit, and I'll maybe start saying something else in a month or two.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys might do with it a month from now on the tournament you've mentioned. So that's the Tri-City Heresy. Everyone's obviously invited if they want to come. And yeah, with that, I think we all finished today's episode. So again, thanks guys for joining in and sharing your insights. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
All right. And to everyone listening, please remember to hit that subscribe button and like the video if you like the content and Vladdy's rants, so that he can come again and share some more. And that's it for today. Thanks very much, and until next time, bye bye.